All right, thanks for hopping on board. Today we're going to be talking about medical emergencies in your church and also what I would call congregational emergencies, how to move a lot of people if you have that type of a problem. So let's get started here. Welcome to the Better Sundays podcast, focused, practical, and usable advice for church leaders looking to reach new young families and impact their community. All right, howdy. Mike Holmes here at reachkeep.com, and you are part of the Better Sundays podcast. It's good to have you here. Appreciate you taking time to sharpen up your act when it comes to your church. Lots of times we've got to work on our preaching, our music, our staffing, all sorts of things, but sometimes we've got to work on emergency kind of things, and that's what these last several podcasts have been about, and I hope that you've been able to go back and watch some of these. We'll put some links at the end where you can go back, or you can just check it out on our channel here on YouTube, but we have dealt with like how to do background checks. We've talked about in-building security, like during service time. We've just got a variety of things about awareness of security situations. All of that is really important stuff. And what we're going to be covering today is medical emergencies, or medical/and emergencies, because sometimes emergencies are not medical, but want to go through some things. I've got three real simple kind of plans of action for you to do. Go boom, boom, boom. That's going to help you kind of make all this happen. But I wanted to take a moment and kind of go through, sort of outline some of the medical emergencies and emergency type things that you would have. Give those to you briefly here just in just a moment or two. This won't take long. There is what we call simple medical emergencies. These would be like if somebody, sprains their ankle or trips coming in the door, someone's got a bad headache, that kind of stuff. People that get sick and, vomit, or children that, get sick, those kind of things. Those are simple emergencies, and those are the ones that are most common. And you need to make sure that your team is ready for those. There are some bigger things, what we call major medical things, and this is where a person, goes down. Boom. I mean, they're down, and it's like a heart attack or a diabetic type of an issue. We had a seizure not too long ago where somebody had a seizure right in our lobby, right where people were coming in. And all of those are sort of the major medical, sort of the call 911 type of emergencies, and you need to be ready for those. The other thing that we're going to cover and that we want to talk about, or what you need to talk about, is what we would just call a congregational emergency. And this is where no one's necessarily hurt, but you have like 100 people or whatever your population is of your Sunday morning or your Sunday night, midweek, whenever it is, your crowd. And all of those people are in some type of danger and need to be moved or made aware of what's going on. And this would cover some of the things like a fire, if there's a fire in the building and you have to evacuate the building. We have evacuation procedures because of the community we're in next to a refinery. You may have something like that. One of the fairly common ones is a weather-related, like a tornado emergency that could come up on a Sunday morning or Sunday evening, and you need to, shelter in place at some level. And then, of course, there is sort of the intruder-oriented things, what we often call the active shooter, and what the plans are. Now, let me give you the three ways to kind of solve these problems. And this is, like I say, a very simple thing, but the first thing is you need to talk about these with your key people. So if you have a security person, you have an assistant pastor, you have a senior pastor, you got a couple of deacons, there needs to be some discussion about these. Most of these discussions tend to kind of veer off into sudden problem-solving situations where it's like, if there's an active shooter, we're going to all pull out our guns. And, if there's this happen, we're going to do this. And the best way to handle that is really to understand that there's going to be many, many types of emergencies. And so when you are facilitating this discussion, you need to maybe get a whiteboard out and go, all right, we're going to go through, let's see if we can list 15. Let's see if we can list 20 different potential problems that could happen. What this does, it keeps you from veering in on one and coming up with all this solution stuff, and then some of the other things don't get covered. And I can guarantee you that I go and do training in these churches, and it's usually the big stuff that gets covered, And when someone vomits, nobody knows what to do. And those are the most common things. So you need to list all of those things out and then kind of triage what are the most important, least important, most common, and kind of work on all of them. So you need to have that discussion. You need to talk about it with your key people who would be in the building on that particular time. The second thing is you need to talk with the responders. In other words, people that would help with this. If you have medical people in your church, that is a wonderful thing to have doctors or nurses or EMT workers, but they need to know, and there needs to be a discussion that they might be called or they might be tapped on the shoulder, say, hey, we got a problem over in the children's department, could you come? They need to be aware of that. So there needs to be a discussion with the responders, and there needs to be an identification of who those people would possibly be. For us at our church, we almost always have EMTs in a service with us. And so we know that those people are the main people. We want to make sure that they are there. But they know that, and they bring their little go bag with them, so they're ready to go. But you need to have a discussion with the responders. If it is the major medical, or emergency things, you need to have discussion with responders who would be outside of your church, and that would be, the head of the fire department. How do you evacuate your building? How do you get people off the roof? We have that question at our, we have a second floor, so it's like if people get stranded on a roof, how do we get them off? What's a rallying point? If there's a storm, where are we going? If there's evacuation, what do we do? All of those things need to be discussed with outside personnel as well as the major medical thing. You need to go down to the local fire station or your EMT or your hospital and say, hey, I want to just ask you a question. If we had a response, how long does it take you to get there? So if we call you, we can kind of know that someone's going to be here in 4 minutes or 14 minutes or 4 hours, whatever it happens to be. If you're a rural church, some of those times are very long and very, very far away from what you would think. When I first moved into this area here, as I've done in every house I've ever bought, I've got on the phone, I've dialed 911 and said, this is not an emergency, but I just moved here and I want you to tell me what shows as my address. And the very first time I did that, when I was here, the fire department that answered was 110 miles away. Now, they had my address down pat, but it also let me know that, man, if there's troubles, I got 110 miles. I mean, if someone driving before they're going to get here, that's going to be a problem. So you're going to want to know that. So you talk amongst it yourselves, and then you talk with your responders. And the last thing you need to do is talk with your congregation. It's where you just need to, from time to time throughout the year, say, hey, we're making some announcements. Just want to let you know, if we ever were to have a tornado, here is the basics, boom, 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 how it works. We will interrupt the service. We will stop. Someone will come to the front and tell people where to go. We'll tell you how to get reunited with your children if they are in a nursery or a children's situation, and we will inform you. If there's a fire, we'll do this. If there is some other thing, we have these leaders here, and they are going to make the decision of whether we shelter in place or evacuate the building. But we just want to let you know we've talked about that. This is a highly likely thing that is going to happen in your church in the next year, is you're going to have some type of either small medical emergency or a larger one, and you need to talk about it. We had someone that hurt a leg a while back. They fell and hurt a knee, and we have a wheelchair in our church just for this purpose. We're able to get the wheelchair out, get them in a wheelchair, move them away, and able to help them, get them out of kind of the traffic flow, and then kind of tend to the bumped up knee there. But we had that ready. You might have crutches, you might have stuff, but you need to have a conversation with your people about these things. You need to have a conversation with your responders, and you need to have a conversation with your congregation. So all of these, I hope, have been a help for you. Make sure you do those 3 things sometime here in the next month or so. Start to have that discussion with somebody, and don't forget to check some of the other things about background checks and security and some of that. And stay tuned, because we're doing a very special thing on nursery security coming up here, and I know a lot of you are interested in that. So anyway, this has been Mike at Better Sundays Podcast. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button for us here, and make sure you hit the share. And if you know a pastor of a small church that needs this type of information, please paste the link of this and send that to them so that they too can be aware and ready and be able to serve their congregation the very best for the glory of God. So thanks for being with us. The Better Sundays podcast at reachkeep.com.